In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, overlooking the can of worms in downtown Rochester, New York, this is the Computer Exorcist Podcast. My name is Mark Anthony Arena. So glad you have joined me today. Wow, it's been a great couple of weeks. I did another tour in Boston, spoke at 3 libraries in the area, and I want to do this the rest of my life, having a blast. A lot of people, the number one fear is public speaking for a lot of people. Some people fear it more than death, supposedly. But I love it. I suck at everything else in life, but I'm good at public speaking, and I love doing it, and the audiences like me, and it's just a ball. So, did that, and then I was a guest recently on Dom Geneva's show, which is called the No Nonsense Roundtable. So he heard about me from one of the talks I gave locally, and he called me up, and I had met him in passing years before. I said, yeah, I remember you, what's going on? And he says, come down and interview on my show. So he interviewed me, and it was so great, we ended up doing 2 episodes, so those will appear on his show in the near future. And we just talked about how similar we were. He's the no-nonsense guy for car buying. He was a car dealer, and he became famous by actually taking care of customers instead of screwing them around with tactics. He makes a customer for life and actually cares about them and treats them right, so they come back. And it's so rare in the industry. And, I mean, I've been treated really well by the people I bought cars from. And I've had bad experiences where I just walk out, right? So you just have to know when to walk out. And so his whole thing is he teaches people how to protect themselves when going to a car dealer, how to spot the predatory practices. And he talked about how we were similar, where I teach people in my field how to avoid the scams, the scummy practices, the predatory practices, the milking fees, the fake security, the hey, you need to buy a new computer because yours is a year old and shame on you, and the support scandal and all that stuff. So we had a phenomenal conversation. I highly recommend his show. And I said, that's what we share in common. We are both here to make money by actually helping people. And in the long run, you make a lot more money when you do it the right way, when you actually help people instead of screwing people over trying to get a quick buck. And then they run away and you have to try to screw new people over, right? You get customer loyalty if you take care of them. All right. Today's episode, I've had this article in the briefcase for way too long. And I was waiting until I debuted a product, but it's coming very soon. So I decided it's time to talk about this article here. And as always, the article describes a problem that's rampant in my industry, and then describes a very dumb solution that people think is going to help, but doesn't actually help at all. It's just a false sense of security. It's a solution made by people who don't understand the problem, or they understand the problem and they want to milk you for recurring fees. All right, so that's classic here. And The topic is robocalls, right? There's evil computers all around the world dialing every number one by one, all right? And as I've said many times, having some kind of a blocker program that blocks that number is the dumbest possible situation, because the bad guys change their number every day. So how dumb is that, right? What if I came over and robbed your house, and then you had a guy come over who said, I'll protect you from anyone named Mark who robs your house. And then the next day, somebody else robs your house. Or I change my name to Bill and then rob your house again, right? Dumbest possible solution ever. But people look at it and go, oh, I feel good about myself. I'm going to press a big red block button. I feel good about myself. Because the consumer or the solution provider does not understand the problem and therefore cannot provide an accurate solution. I'm getting sure of myself in my old age here, huh? All right. So this is from July of 2018. Definitely the oldest that's been in my briefcase for a while here. And I think I'm finally ready to discuss it. And it comes courtesy of listener Matt. And it goes like this. Wall Street Journal. Why are there so many robocalls? Here's what you can do about it. Robocalls won't vanish soon, but carriers are working on a spam filter and other fixes. Okay, and the author is Catherine Bindley, and I'm actually going to email her at some point and tell her I am on the verge of releasing a product that will actually put a stop to all of this. Remember when phone calls meant people wanted to talk to you about something other than lowering your interest rates, right? I mean, I used to love gabbing on the phone for hours with my friends when I was in high school and college and the years after college, right? And that's the problem with texting, right, is that you're texting each other throughout the day, which is nice, but then you don't get those hour-long gab sessions anymore. These days, the phone rings so often with recorded robocall messages. You qualify, you owe, you've won, that answering them feels like a hazard. Absolutely. I mean, at this point in my life, the phone rings and I'm screaming. It's either a scammer or it's a client, and either way, I don't want to be bothered. And she says this. She says, I hit my own robocall breaking point a month ago. I was grabbing a quick shower before catching a flight, and my phone rang, and fearing I'd miss a call from my boss, I jumped out of the shower and answered the phone, but no, it was a recording instead. And I resisted the urge to throw my phone across the bathroom and went looking for answers. Why can't anyone stop this madness, and when will it end? And side note, that's what happened to me around 2017 or so, 2016 or 17. I got a call. I was trying to run to the bathroom, and I got a call, picked it up, and it was Evil Scammer. And I thought to myself, there's got to be a way to fix this. In my case, I thought about it and came up with an idea to actually solve this. And it's been on the back burner since then. But yeah, around 2025, I think this year, I should be ready to release this product, and it's going to be glorious. So stay tuned for that. It will actually put a stop to the stupidity. All right, so here's what she says. First, the bad news. There's no silver bullet. That's wrong. I have the silver bullet. So she didn't know about it because it's not out yet, and shame on me because I have all these great solutions, but they're always on my back burner. But she says developments in the works should get the robocall problem more under control, and there are steps to take on your own that can actually reduce calls. With the internet, businesses don't need expensive hardware. Anyone can start a mini call center with software that auto-dials numbers and then spoofs the caller ID, in other words, impersonates your caller ID. They also need a provider to originate the call, that is, connect the call to the worldwide phone network, okay? Some robocalls are legitimate, like your pharmacy or your bank, but the ones that change their numbers constantly to appear like they're local calls and avoid detection, those aren't legitimate, of course. And robocallers even spoof phone numbers that are held by ordinary people, right? So they can spoof companies and they can spoof normal phone numbers. And that's really important here. So they can impersonate anyone. They have an evil robot computer that dials out, and it can impersonate anyone. So she says, don't call people back and yell at them, of course, because it'll impersonate anyone. I got a call one time, I thought it was from a cousin, but it was a robocaller impersonating that cousin's phone number, okay? Robocalls have seized the technology that helps legitimate businesses, and here's how they've perverted the phone call, okay? So normal personal calls, Jim calls Frank, and the caller ID shows up as Jim. Frank's cell phone shows Jim's number, and Frank answers the phone. Okay, that's how it's supposed to work. With businesses, Jenny's office has a phone system that lets many employees dial out over the same phone number. It's called an exchange, a private branch exchange, or PBX. The exchange system inserts the caller ID for the company's phone number. And your cell phone displays that number, that main number of the company, and there you go. So here's what happens to the robocaller. Bad guy downloads a software for free that can insert any caller ID, right? Again, you can impersonate anyone. Then an auto dialer calls many numbers from a huge database, or just calling every number in the world one at a time, right? The robocall places the calls over the internet, and that's not quite true. What happens is the robocaller has to connect to a phone company that originates the call, all right? So it's the evil computer has something called a VoIP adapter, which sends the call to a VoIP company, a VoIP provider, through the internet, and then that VoIP provider connects the call to the normal phone system. Okay, so that VoIP provider is the bridge between the internet and the phone system. With caller ID basically broken, developers have proposed a call certifying protocol known as STIR, and guidelines for it called SHAKEN. All right, so it's shaken and stir, and that's kind of cute, right? Shaken, not stirred. Just like all the laws that Congress comes up with, they love coming up with clever acronyms, right? But the laws don't ever help anyone, but the acronyms are cute. So in this case, we have shaken, stir. And I'm writing a speech about this and a mini tech tip in my forthcoming book that's coming out later this year. And I'm calling it the Shake and Stir Scandal. So I'm going to talk about how it's horrible complexity and it's absolutely unable to do anything ever. But again, all these people laud this solution because, hey, we're suffering so badly, we're going to laud anyone that comes along with a solution here. But this solution has proven to be horribly, horribly complex, horribly useless. So I'm giving away the ending here, so hang on a second. With Shake and Stir, an originating phone carrier could check that a caller has the right to use that number and create a digital fingerprint for the call. They love digital fingerprints. Meaning an ultra-complex string of hundreds of letters and numbers that, aside from being ultra-complex, can never accomplish anything whatsoever. The carrier on the receiving end could verify that nothing was messed with because there's a digital fingerprint and a digital signature. They're not saying that the call comes from the phone number. They're saying that the user is entitled to use that phone number. Okay? If a bad guy tries to spoof the caller ID, the call would go through, but it wouldn't be verified. And you would see a check mark or a happy face or a shield, right? My industry loves check marks and shields and happy faces and locks and more shields to indicate that it was a verified caller. This is what I call an evil centralized validation scheme, okay? All engineers, if you talk to them at cocktail parties, whenever you talk about a societal problem, they will suggest slathering ultra-complexity and slathering centralized control all over a problem, okay? Because they've never heard of anything else. And, I mean, a few of them, of course, know about simple elegance and protecting yourself, regardless of a centralized monolith. But most of the time, these dudes just love slathering complexity and control all over everything. All right, every article I talk about on here, I always have to say that. Evil computer guys love ultra complexity and control, right? It's kind of like the IRS. It can never protect you against anything. Okay. Now they're talking about cell carriers having a spam filter with evil AI that guesses based on probability if it's a valid phone call. Okay. We are optimistic it will have an impact, but again, this alone is not going to solve the problem, said the FCC. Of course not, because it's ultra complex and it's shooting in the dark. The FCC adopted rules that let phone companies block calls from area codes that don't exist. All right, well, that's sort of cool. All right. And they put it on a do not originate number. But this puts more burden on the good guys, right? This is more example of the good guys having to play Whac-A-Mole and saying, oh, that call doesn't exist, and that phone number doesn't exist, and this doesn't exist, and this isn't validated, and this doesn't work, and there's no digital key, so we're going to have to put in a spam probability, and we're going to have to do a verification code, and there's no verification, so we'll have to mark them as unlikely, and this will inevitably result, aside from the ultracomplexity, it will inevitably result in blowing false alarms. That's all this complex garbage can do, is blow a false alarm. All right, so just like your spam folder, where especially if you're infected with AOL, you got all the bad stuff coming into your inbox, and all your friends are going into your spam filter, because all technology is evil and can never actually truly solve a problem. They can only shoot in the dark. They say the rules have been effective in stopping IRS scam calls because scammers have been spoofing an IRS line that is now on the do not call list. Ha! Right. Hilarious. All right, so let's step back a few seconds here. Remember the do not call list? Where you could have, they made a law that said there was a list, and if a company was bothering you, you could tell on them. You could tattletale on them by calling the federal government and saying that this company is bothering you. Hilarious. The bad guys laugh. All right, the bad guys just decided, hey, let's just operate out of another country, and then we won't be subject to that do not call list, right? That's it. They just laugh at it and we'll call it a day. So until the day we have one world government where our government can go after some of these bad guys, which they're everywhere. There's billions of bad guys out there. You're never going to catch all of them, right? So it's totally pointless. The do not call list is totally, utterly fake and useless and pointless. The bad guys just laugh and they leave the United States. Okay? But IRS calls can come from a variety of numbers. Absolutely. And Aaron Foss, founder of the call blocking app called Nomo Robo, said he identified 75 different numbers peddling IRS scams in just one day. Exactly. All right. So exactly. They change their number every day. Why don't you take the hint here and stop doing a Whac-A-Mole scheme to try to get these guys? All right. When you get a robocall, hang up, don't say anything, don't press buttons, don't call back. Once scammers know your number works, they can sell your number and your call volume could increase. Ha! That part I suspected to be true, and that's really cool. I always suspected that, because I started answering every call, because as y'all know, I love answering calls and messing with scammers and wasting their time. And the more I answer, even on a daily basis, like these guys have an up-to-date daily record of who's answering the phone. It's funny, because if I don't answer the phone for a week, they'll leave me alone. But if I answer the phone more, their database is so rapid that they'll start telling other scammers that my number is active. So it's not just, if you answer the phone, they start selling your number. It's, if you start answering the phone, they'll start selling your number, and it's a real time where they're actually up to the minute. These bad guys are light years ahead of the so-called good guys. All right, so that's interesting. That confirmed my suspicion they're selling numbers. But again, they're selling numbers that are absolutely accurate, where based on the day that I felt like answering the call, they'll sell my number more based on that day. It can feel like there's no point in blocking numbers in your phone. I blocked one chronic pain management caller and got the same recording in another 48 hours. Of course. Thank you. So you said it, author. You said it yourself. It's utterly pointless to block these people. Also, add yourself to the do not call registry. Hello! We just talked about that a second ago. The do not call registry is hilarious, and it's an utter waste of time, and it's a phenomenal waste of taxpayer billions. Guarantee you they've spent billions and millions to make that, all right? Service providers have upped their robocall protection offerings. They have features to identify a possible scam call and then gauge the likelihood as a scam, right? Again, they have evil AI that deals with numbers and percentages. Ultra-complex AI that sits there and juggles numbers around and then tells you if the call coming in is possibly a scam. Look, I get calls sometimes every 10 minutes at this point, sometimes every 5 minutes. And, much as I love T-Mobile, they're definitely the best. But they have a little thing that said, verified business, verification business, verified business, or something. It's some evil app that sits there and allegedly protects me. Meanwhile, the calls are flooding in every 5-10 minutes. It's hysterical. All right, they just do it to put a feather in their cap and to brag that they're somehow protecting. AT&T offers this service for $4 a month. Verizon has one. It's recently improved for $3 a month. And Nomorobo is $2 a month, right? So it's a beautiful way, again, to not solve the problem, but to milk people instead. It's a beautiful way because this industry worships recurring revenue, right? So it's a perfect storm of recurring revenue, extreme incompetence, extreme complexity, and extreme control. None of it can ever protect you against anything. In Verizon's case, I mean, they're the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst in every possible aspect. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have zero protection against anything, of course. So again, it's Whac-A-Mole. There's also an app called Hiya, Hiya, which is how they say hello in England and Canada. Hiya. And it works by analyzing data from complaints made to the FTC. And it's hysterical because it's Whac-A-Mole. All right? So look, here's your silver bullet. My product is called Only You Can Call Me. It's coming out pretty soon, hopefully this year. OnlyYouCanCallMe.com is where I will have the site coming soon, and it will be the silver bullet because unlike all of these ultra-complex central control schemes, it's very simple. For the first product, I'm just going to do landlines for your home. We'll start with that. We're going to protect you. It's decentralized. It's not centralized control. It simply puts a stop to all robocalls. That's it. The only thing that can get through to you is a human friend, and that's it. It puts a stop to all robocalls no matter what. It is the silver bullet. It is coming soon. So I want to give you a little update on that, right? So 2018, they were looking forward to the advent of this shake and stir technology, right? Here's what happened. XDA-developers.com 2021. T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon have rolled out the FCC's anti-spoofing protocol. The FCC set a deadline for the mandatory adoption of the Shake and Stir Shaken protocol in March, requiring major carriers to comply with the anti-spoofing system, right? They love compliance. You know how many billions of people are employed by organizations just to comply with someone's random whimsical requirements? It's a massive waste on humanity. All right? It's by June of 21, all the calls must be verified using cryptographic certificates, right? Digital fingerprints, digital signatures, digital keys. And all it is a string of hundreds of letters and numbers, okay? All the major carriers, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, say they're fully compliant. All calls are stir and shaken compliant. Look, folks, bad guys aren't originating calls on American cell phones, all right? They're originating calls with robocaller robots that are connected to VoIP services, as I said a little while ago. Stir shaken is one of the best lines of defense against robocalls because it requires the carrier to verify and do a digital signature and sign the call originating from the network using a cryptographic digital certificate. The FCC has set up a robocall mitigation database. The agency requires voice service providers to file certifications of their mitigation efforts in a database, including their status of how they've implemented Shaken and Stir. So it's certifications of certifications of certificates of certificates of certificates of certificates. All right, so, and again, the reason why I love reading articles a couple of years afterward is to show you the impact, right? So here we are, 2025. Has that stopped robocalls at all whatsoever? No! The bad guys adapted immediately. They got cell phone numbers now, and now instead of just saying scam likely, the bad guys end up hijacking people's phone numbers, and they've gamed the system and hacked the system, so to speak. So now any robocalls coming in, not only say, some of them will still say scam likely, but a lot of them are now saying real people's names. They're now impersonating real people. I remember seeing plenty of them where it was a person from the phone book or a person I knew or whatever. So the bad guys, the end of the story is the bad guys laughed and they adapted, okay? The bad guys laughed and kept on going, and it did not affect them whatsoever. Because again, This industry is obsessed with ultracomplexity and very tight consolidation of power and control and digital keys and digital certificates and all sorts of filth that makes you feel good but gives you a false sense of security. Look at the results, folks. All I have to do, I could sit here and whine and complain and make cartoon voices all day. But here we are in 2025. Look at the reality. Have the robocalls stopped? No. They've increased, if anything. All right? Because the solution to the problem was idiotic and cannot help. So again, stay tuned for the silver bullet. My product is called OYCCM, Only You Can Call Me, and it's coming out hopefully this year. And we are going to actually put a stop, right? Just like I said when I was on Dom's show yesterday, we recorded the show, and I said, I'm interested in putting an actual stop to your problems. I'll charge you a lot of money once, and you just don't need me again instead of milking people for fees. How's that? So, thecomputerexorcist.com, and if you're interested in helping join the fight against this evil stuff and making your living by actually helping people, you can go to becomeanexorcist.com to find out how you can buy some training from me. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mark Anthony Arena. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.